Building History Brick by Brick. I'm your host, Rhiannon, and this is Libby. She's one of thousands of artifacts we host here at the museum every year. But unlike many of our donations, her history is a little more cryptic. With an improvable tale from an old relic seller, we realized that Libby could come from anywhere in the country and anywhere in history, which made us wonder, if given the chance, what kind of stories could a brick tell us about the past? This month, Libby is taking us to New York City. The 20th century ushered in a new era of fashion, ready to wear. Consumer demand pushed the city's garment district to grow rapidly, with the hiring of thousands of young immigrant women each year to produce these new pieces in veritable sweatshops. But demands for better conditions fell on deaf ears until the evening of March 25th, when New York City and America were forced to listen and to care. This is the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Fighting for the rights of workers is as American as apple pie. Since the Polish craftsmen's strike of 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, industries across the nation have seen workers unite for better pay, increased safety, and an end to exploitative practices. New York's garment industry found itself on the receiving end of a massive strike in 1909. With the arrival of ready-to-wear fashion, the demand for pre-made clothing skyrocketed, and by the time of the strike, approximately 20 shirtwaist factories were producing $50 million in merchandise each year. But precious little made it out of the pockets of owners. In fact, cost-cutting became a corporate pastime. Women reported their wages were kept low through an exploitative subcontractor system. Their poor wages were further assaulted through arbitrary punishments, such as being accused of damaging goods or being late. Even worse, most companies refused to buy the materials needed to produce these blouses, forcing workers to buy thread, needles, and even sewing machines just to complete their jobs. With many of these companies operating out of regular business buildings rather than large warehouses, owners attempted to save money by packing a workshop beyond reasonable capacity. This resulted in sweatshop conditions with little space to work, which was compounded by mountains of scrap materials that took months to remove. Using previous unionization skills learned in Europe, the Jewish and Italian women of the garment industry went on strike in November 1909. In addition to improved workshop spaces, provided supplies, and better pay, workers also demanded that owners stop locking doors and to take safety seriously. The strike lasted until March 1910, and estimates put the number of strikers at 20,000, or 3/4 of the industry's workforce. The strike worked for the most part, with many companies agreeing to the demands. One of the few holdouts was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory on Washington Street. Owners Max Blank and Isaac Harris refused to buckle under pressure. With the general strike over, however, workers had no choice but to return, where abusive conditions awaited them. It was only a matter of time before tragedy would strike, and on the afternoon of March 25th, that is exactly what happened. There are conflicting stories about the origins of the fire, but it is believed it was accidental in nature and possibly caused by a still-lit match or cigarette. Regardless of its origins, inspectors were able to determine the fire started in a scrap bin in an 8th floor workshop. With cotton fabric and wooden structures everywhere, the fire quickly became a blaze and sent workers running for the nearest exits. Doors were discovered to be locked and the key holders long gone. Those on the 10th floor escaped to the roof, but the 9th and 8th floors found themselves trapped. As the flames increased, some women jumped out of windows, and a reporter later noted, "I have learned a new sound that day, a sound more horrible than description can picture. The thud of a speeding living body on a stone sidewalk." The elevator operators attempted to make as many trips as they could, but soon were driven back by the heat, although it didn't stop some women from jumping into the elevator shaft in an attempt to climb down the cables to safety. New York City allowed Blank and Harris to install a flimsy metal ladder instead of the required stairwell to serve as an extender fire escape. Women who climbed out the windows found it improperly installed, and the loose bolts along the heat of the fire snapped the metal, sending nearly 24 women to their death 100 feet below. The fire department arrived, but were stymied in their rescue attempts. Not only were their ladders 3 stories too short, but the number of bodies surrounding the building prevented them from getting closer. The fire was eventually contained, but the damage had been done. In addition to the 62 workers who jumped or fell to their deaths, another 84 were recovered from the factory floors. Nearly all of them were women, and the youngest was only 14 years old. In the aftermath of the fire, Blank and Harris were arrested and charged with first and second-degree manslaughter, but were acquitted. A civil suit followed in 1913 where they were still found liable and ordered to pay restitution. The loss of life was valued at $75 per person. Within 2 years of the fire, 60 of the laws passed by the state of New York were related to workers' rights and safety, all driven by the disaster. Armed with these new protections, workers experienced reduced hours, improved break and restroom facilities, and broader safety features, alarms, fire suppression systems, and new escape routes. All things that would have saved the majority of the 146 who died in 1911. The grassroots work of unions, activists, and workers drove many of these laws into reality, and in the aftermath of the fire, the number of pro-union women increased significantly. Frances Perkins watched the fire unfold in real time, drawing her into the fight for workers' rights that would take her to the position of Secretary of Labor. The impact of these individuals and groups would ensure that the American garment worker would never again face a tragedy that left 140 families grieving for what might have been. While today's American garment workers can rely upon federal and state laws to protect them, fashion businesses have simply moved production overseas to countries that do not provide such protections, such as China, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and even Turkey. Workers in these countries are forced to work in deplorable conditions for meager pay, and with no investment or focus on safe conditions, thousands are injured or killed every year on the job. The desire for fast, cheap fashion fueled by American consumers simply continues its reliance upon sweatshop labor. However, in 2023, we have a chance to honor the 146 who died in 1911 by rejecting this business model and seeking ways to improve the lives of garment workers everywhere. Join us next month as we travel across the country to San Francisco, where the power of Mother Nature changed the city forever.